All right. So if it does hit a player, then I want to not go further to the left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set x position equal to -32 times explode count -1, so it immediately ends this loop. Basically, I have to make sure it goes past this threshold value. So it stops checking that. Also, I should check to see if there's a wall there.
Imaginary number.
All right, so that's going left. And let me check that to make sure I haven't broken anything in new and interesting ways. Game created, start. There we go. All right, the code is very similar for going in the other directions. So I'm actually going to copy and paste this thing, because copy and paste can never get you in trouble, right? So creating the right branch, I need to start at +32, keep going while it's less than or equal to 32 times explode count, and make sure I add. Finally, I need to make sure that if I run into something, I don't say -32, I say positive, and then change these to +1 on each. Basically, every negative sign that was up here, I flip to a positive, except for this x position thing. So this for loop basically says go start at 32 over, keep going while you've gone that far over, and then add 32 every time you go through the loop. If you run into something, make sure you go just past this spot, whatever this is. Test it out. Host, OK. Game created, start. Blam! All right, this is getting more exciting. It's still creating them on top of the walls, but it's not going through them. Once I put in some temporary walls, we'll see how this works out. Now, as far as the up and down, I'm going to change this to Y position on all of these things. Y position, Y position, Y position. And I'm going to add the Y position on these. And Y position equals these things. So basically, I flip the X and the Y. All right, so Y position starts at -32. That's going up, of course. Greater than -32 times explode count. Y position -32. So it's going up every step by 32 pixels. Create your explosion. If you run into a player or a wall, then make sure you jump past the end of that loop. Righto. Save. Run. I'm sure this will work. It always works the first time. Always and never. I always get those confused. Anyway. All right. And down. The bottom branch, 32. This will be less than or equal to 32 times that. I'm adding every time. The Y positions are fine. And you just flip the signs on this. Host, okay. Game created, start. Much better. Bigger explosions. Now, one nice thing about this is I can actually change this number here to be a variable, the explode count. So maybe if I collect a power-up that increases the strength of my bombs and makes it, say, a 5, this should all work automatically. So by changing that to 5, I host the game, my game's created, I hit the start button. Automatically makes it bigger. Very nice. All right, so one of the things that makes the game more interesting is having walls you can actually blow up, so you can alter the maze. So what I'd like to do is, I'm actually going to create another kind of wall, which is basically a temporary wall. So I'm going to just duplicate this wall sprite. Temp wall sprite. Let's put some cracks in this thing. All right, there we go. My awesome artwork. Anyway, so I'm going to create a wall that is a temp wall. Temp wall object. It's going to have that sprite. It is going to be solid. Now the trick with this guy is, if I run into a wall, I want to destroy it if an explosion runs into this thing. So this guy's going to have a special event where if he has a collision with an explosion, he is going to destroy himself. Now the players, when they collide with walls, are currently setting their speed to 0. We should have something like that for the temp wall as well. So if I have a collision with the temp wall, I should also set my speed to 0. There are more clever ways to deal with this. You could have it slide along walls. You could have it jump back to previous positions. This is just an example that's relatively rough to show you how this works. All right, temp walls. That's too many. And let's actually make sure they line up with the grid. All right, so I can't run through them. That's good. Whoa, they go right through them. That's a problem. They were destroyed. So what I need to do is make sure temp wall sets its parent to be wall, so that when I'm checking for collisions in the explosion center, this place meeting also counts temp walls in here. Blam! There we go. All right, so that shows you some things about the explosions, how to make them more interesting. A quick power-up would be to have something that spawns, and if you run over it, it increases your explosion size. If you do that, one thing you're going to have to do, though, is make sure that you have your own separate explosion center, because this would have to change for each player. And the other thing you would have to do is write that out to the network, and all of the clone bombs would need to read that value in. Otherwise, you will get power-ups, but none of your clones will. And that will look really weird when you start destroying people and you're like, hey, how did that happen? All right, so that gets you started on some of the stuff for the actual gameplay, the maze. Just make sure that anything that shows up on your screen also shows up on everyone else's screen.